Hello my dear students, today we will start a new lesson which is about the respiratory system. Respiration. Respiration means getting the energy that we want from the food that we digested by the help of the oxygen. So, we have an equation we have to know. The digested food is burned by the oxygen, and this burning is causing an energy, plus some products like carbon dioxide and water vapor. So, what is the meaning of respiration? It is the process by which humans get energy by burning the digested food. The more active your body, the more respiration time increase. When I'm running, I'm using more energy than when I'm sitting down. So, I need more oxygen to get more energy.
The respiratory system moves air through the nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, and bronchus to the alveoli where the gas exchange between oxygen and carbon dioxide occurs. Nares are the openings to the nose. The nasal cavity is lined with cilia, mucous membranes, and blood capillaries. The air is filtered by cilia, moistened by mucous membranes, and warmed by the blood. Air moves into the pharynx or throat, the common passageway for food and air. Air continues on to the larynx. The epiglottis, a flap of tissue in front of the larynx, closes off the larynx when swallowing to prevent food from entering. The larynx or voice box contains the vocal folds. The trachea or windpipe connects the larynx to the bronchial tree. The cartilage rings of the trachea prevent the trachea from collapsing. Lungs are spongy tissue with alveoli and blood capillaries. The bronchi carrying the air subdivide into smaller branches called bronchioles. At the end of each bronchiole are the alveolar sacs. The alveolar sacs are surrounded by blood capillaries and contain millions of single-layer alveoli cells where the gas exchange takes place. Oxygenated air goes from the nose to the pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchus, and alveoli.
Let's know about the structure of our respiratory system. Starting from the nose, which is the first organ in our respiratory system, then the nasal cavity, which is the space here inside your nose, then the air goes to the pharynx, which is common between the esophagus and the trachea, to pass through the trachea. Then the trachea is divided into two branches, which are called bronchus. Every bronchus will enter a lung. We have two lungs. The bronchus are divided into smaller tubes, which are called bronchioles. At the end of the bronchioles, we will find the alveoli. The alveoli is the air sac that the oxygen enters and the carbon dioxide get out from. Then the diaphragm muscle here, and these are the rib cage muscles that protect the lungs with the heart. First organ in our respiratory system, the nose. The nose has two important functions: filter the air from dust and microbes and warm the air. What inside the nose that makes the nose do these functions? The nose contains mucus and hair inside it to filter the dust and the microbes from the air. Also, the nose contains blood capillaries, which work on warm the air. Organ number 2 is called the pharynx. I told you about the pharynx before in the digestive system, and I told you that the pharynx is a common cavity between the esophagus and the trachea. Now let's know about this structure. We have at the top of the trachea, we have the larynx, which is the voice box. Then the trachea itself, which is like a tube. Then the trachea is divided into two bronchus, each one entering into one lung. Then the bronchioles, which are the smaller branches from the bronchus. then the alveoli, which are the air sacs. Talking about the larynx, it is the voice box, and it is at the top of the trachea. This is the location of the larynx, and this is what we have to know about it.
Whenever you're ready.
We have two organs at the top of the trachea. One of them is called larynx, the voice box, as we said before. The second organ is called the epiglottis. Can you see this white part that closes the trachea during swallowing? So it lets the food go through the esophagus, not through the trachea. This organ is called the epiglottis. So it's found at the top of the trachea. So the function of the epiglottis to closes the trachea to prevent the food from entering the two lungs. Now let's talk about the third organ in our respiratory system, which is the trachea. The trachea is like a tube, but it's made up of cartilage. What is the meaning of cartilage? Your ears are made up of cartilage. Yes, this is the cartilage. It's made up of incomplete cartilaginous rings. Means cartilage rings but incomplete rings. Very important reason here. Trachea has incomplete cartilaginous rings. Why the trachea is made up of cartilage rings? To keep it always open. If the trachea is like a tube without any cartilage, it may be closed anytime. But because the trachea is very important to our life to let the air pass to the lungs, so it's made up of cartilage rings. Trachea also contains cilia. What is the meaning of cilia? Cilia is very short hair inside the trachea. This is the cilia. What is the function of the cilia inside the trachea? To eject up the strange objects. If any object other than the air wants to enter into the trachea, the cilia working on eject it up. After the air passes through the trachea, it goes to the two lungs. The location of the two lungs, they are occupied the thoracic cavity. This is our thoracic cavity, and this is the abdominal cavity. The thoracic cavity and the abdominal cavity are separated from each other by a muscle which is called diaphragm. We will talk about the diaphragm on the next slide. But the lungs now occupy the thoracic cavity and are inferiorly supported or surrounded by the ribs. The ribs are for protecting the lungs with the heart. These are the ribs. The function of the two lungs, gas exchange takes place in the two lungs, especially inside the alveoli of the two lungs. What is the meaning of gas exchange? We inhale oxygen and we exhale carbon dioxide. This is the meaning of gas exchange. We get in oxygen and we get out the carbon dioxide gas. Of the alveoli. The alveoli also is called the air bag or the air sac. The alveoli is surrounded by capillaries, blood capillaries everywhere. They are surrounded by a network of blood capillaries because of the gas exchange. Some of these blood capillaries contain oxygen and some of them contain carbon dioxide. When the air goes into the two lungs, it goes here inside the alveoli. Now the oxygen is here inside the alveoli. The alveoli gives the blood the oxygen and take the carbon dioxide from the blood. So this gas exchange is taking place between the alveoli and the blood capillaries around it.
The process of exchanging gases between the atmosphere and the body's cells is called respiration and involves several events, including breathing. As we zoom into the body, we can observe the respiratory system during gas exchange. Air passes through the alveolar sacs to the alveoli, where gas exchange occurs. In this cutaway view of an alveolar sac and its capillary bed, the process of gas exchange is easily observed. During inspiration, atmosphere air fills the alveoli and gas exchange occurs between the alveolar and capillary epithelia. Oxygen in inspired air is represented as a white gas. Carbon dioxide in expired air is represented as a blue gas. Notice the changing color in the red blood cells during gas exchange. Now let's zoom into a higher magnification view of gas exchange at the respiratory membrane. Red blood cells in the capillary adjacent to the alveolus release carbon dioxide and bind oxygen.
Now the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a muscle that separates between the thoracic cavity and the abdominal cavity, as I said before. It lies here between the thoracic cavity and the abdominal cavity. So, we have a muscle which has a very important role in respiration process. We will know what is the function of the diaphragm in the respiration process now.
So, what exactly is a diaphragm? Inside your chest cavity, the diaphragm works to help your breathing. When it contracts, air fills into your lungs. When the diaphragm relaxes, it expands and forces the air out. This is how we breathe.
Know more about the mechanism of respiration and what is the difference between inhalation and exhalation. Inhalation means getting in the oxygen. On this process, the oxygen entering into the two lungs. And the diaphragm, which is the muscle which lies here, is contracting and moves down. On exhalation process, the carbon dioxide leaves the two lungs. Then the diaphragm will relax and go up again. Respiration. When the diaphragm, which is the muscle here, moves down and contracts, the lungs enlarged and forced to inhale the air. The air enters the nose, then the pharynx and the trachea. So it goes to the two lungs via the bronchus. Then the gas exchange happens inside the alveoli, which is the air sacs inside the lungs. Then the diaphragm relaxes and moves up and exhale the carbon dioxide outside our body. Two important notes which are so important. Our lungs are out of muscle, cannot shrink or relax. So the diaphragm is the muscle that shrinks or contracts and relaxes, not our lungs. 2. We inhale the atmospheric oxygen, the oxygen that's found in the air, with lungs, but fish inhale the dissolved oxygen inside the water using their gills. Did you remember the equation for respiration? The digested food plus the oxygen will burn inside our body to get the energy, and we have some products other than the energy: carbon dioxide and water vapor. How we prove that the exhaled air contains carbon dioxide and water vapor? By two simple experiments. To prove the presence of carbon dioxide gas, we will get the lime water, which turned into turbid on blowing on it, as it turned into turbid only in the presence of the carbon dioxide gas. Also, as a proof that the exhaled air contains water vapor, we will blow on a mirror, and you will see the water vapor in front of you on the mirror. How can you keep your respiratory system healthy? Number 1, be away from crowded places. 2, keeping off severe colds. 3, eating fruits that rich with vitamin C like the orange and guava. 4, keep away from smokers or any smoked place. Finish our lesson. Thank you and see you next lesson.